I need to give due credit to Thick Scratch from the Dracula's Castle subreddit for heavily inspiring me on the topic regarding vampirism in Castlevania. In most horror media, or any media in general relating to vampires or the supernatural, the rules and law will get somewhat altered from medium to medium so as to distinguish it from all others relating to the topic. Some mediums will adhere to the base concepts of vampire lore, others will alter it so drastically that they barely have anything in common. Then there are the ones that will attempt some interesting new ideas with varying results. In Castlevania's case, what vampires we do know of has always been aligned with darkness and vice. Whatever humanity, sense of virtue, or inherent goodness they once possessed is gone once they have fully turned. In short, a redeemable vampires actually goes against the established law of Castlevania and even undermines the gravitas of the fact that it's a curse in itself. Throughout the stretch of Castlevania's timeline, all the way back to the original run, has there been no evidence that vampires themselves retained a sense of good or virtue. For example, assuming we take his origins from Lament of Innocence also into account, Dracula is consumed with anger and grief at both God and eventually the human race. What sets Dracula apart is not his hatred for the humans at first, but the God he once believed in and sought to surpass him. His love for his second wife, Lisa, and her murder drives him to madness and unleashes his fury on the humans as a whole. Regardless of the guilt or innocence, to him, he has judged mankind as guilty, and since they are made in God's image, killing them will be the same as killing God. Brona is another example, as he has lost his daughters during World War I. The circumstance in how he became a vampire isn't detailed by Wind, but like Dracula, he is consumed by grief and anger. When he sees Eric's daughters, he deludes himself into believing they are his daughters reincarnated and even kills Eric before placing a spell on them, making them believe they are his daughters. Dracula and Brona are both the result of their sorrow and wrath consuming them to the point they no longer possess the capacity to forgive or heal from their loss. Carmilla is more obsessed with her own beauty and eternal youth. Vampirism is merely a means to do so, as her mask is the visual representation of that desire. She is the result of vanity. As for Olrox, he has no loyalties to anyone, nor does he have loftier goals like the others. Unlike other vampires, he is both cautious and curious of humans. He would even manipulate a cult founded by Graham Jones in order to prove a theory. He is the result of apathy. The enigmatic Walter Bernard kidnapped Ronaldo's daughter and turned her into a vampire. He would also kidnap loved ones of other warriors and hunters in order to goad them into a fight against him, knowing that he will win due to the Philosopher's Stone making him invincible. He is the result of hubris. Gilles de Rais was based on a real person, a French knight who was exposed as a serial killer who murdered at least 100 children. In the Castlevania lore, he was a French baron that was hanged for his crimes as a serial killer. He survived his hanging and faked his death due to being already turned into a vampire. Once he came into Dracula's service, he would plot alongside Death and Actress to resurrect the Dark Lord. He is the result of cruelty. Elizabeth Bartley engineered World War I as part of a plot to revive Dracula and even turned Eric's beloved into a vampire. She is the result of malice. Making vampires more nuanced was never the issue. It's when the narrative actively tries to justify their actions or motives. This actually takes away from the fact that they are supposed to be aberrations, unnatural creations that goes against the laws of nature as well as all that is virtuous and good. Their loss of humanity and manifestation of their darkest sins are supposed to be what sets vampires apart from humans. Now there are also examples of good people that were turned into vampires against their will. The four that come to mind is Sarah, Leon's fiancée, who rather chose to sacrifice herself to unlock the full power of the vampire killer. The second is Rosa, a young woman who fought over a vampire curse as best as she could, and in the end, also chose to sacrifice herself to save Reinhard, and in a dying breath, Reinhard prayed for her salvation. The third is Eric's love, Gwendolyn, of whom Eric himself had to slay as it was too late to save her. The last is a young boy named Malice. Though little is known of him, Malice was tragically fated to be the host for Dracula's return. The main point of this topic is to highlight the curse that is vampirism, how it either feeds into one's deepest vices until that is all that becomes of the person, or destroys one's humanity until they become a shadow of their former selves. Good people in the world of Castlevania would never intentionally become vampires, as they lose a fundamental piece of themselves they can never recover, not to mention the constant need for human blood, which makes them no better than leeches. The exception to this is Alucard, the half-blooded son of Dracula and Lisa. Despite having his humanity, the vampire blood coursing through Alucard comes with its own burden, as well as the temptation of a vampire's thirst that forever gnaws at him. It's Alucard's discipline and humanity that allows him to resist the curse of vampirism and become a force for good. In closing, humanized vampires may work in other mediums and stories such as, let's say, True Blood, Vampire Diaries, Vampire the Masquerade, and countless more. Castlevania, however, has its own rules and law that the show altered for the worse when they humanized vampires, forgetting that they are supposed to be the parasitic monsters humanity fear and revile for very good reasons. Not to mention, the show placed too much emphasis on vampires as well as downplaying and diminishing the true extent of Dracula's powers. Even the Rings of Power made their elves act and behave too much like the humans, and as a result, removed anything that actually sets them apart as a species. While humans themselves are capable of evil, they are also capable of good. If they weren't, we would never have had heroes who stood by their convictions even at great and personal cost. Heroes who rose above their flaws, their fears, their desires and their losses. Heroes who are themselves human.